today's explainer. All right, let's just dive right in. Because honestly, what we're looking at today is completely life-changing. You know, back in the day, if you were the kid of a farmer, well, you became a farmer. Parent was an artisan, you became an artisan. Your whole career path was basically just handed right to you. But today, yeah, everything's changed. Knowledge workers? And hey, that's most of us now. We have to manage ourselves. We actually have choices. But here's the catch. To navigate those choices and put yourself in a spot where you can make the absolute greatest contribution, you've got to deeply, truly understand your own strengths. So I want you to stop for a second and really ask yourself, do you actually know what you're good at? Just hold on to that thought, because legendary management thinker Peter Drucker drops a wildly uncomfortable truth on us. He says that most people think they know what they're good at, but as a rule, they are entirely wrong. And man, it gets worse. People are even more frequently wrong about what they are bad at. We're all just walking around with these massive blind spots about our true capabilities. And that's a huge problem, right? Because you literally cannot build lasting performance on your weaknesses. You can only build performance on your strengths.
Which brings us to Section 1, the feedback analysis.
Now, if standard personality tests and peer reviews aren't giving you the full picture, what exactly does? Well, Drucker introduces us to this brutally honest, evidence-based mirror called the feedback analysis. And the method itself, it's shockingly simple. Seriously, whenever you make a big decision or take a major action, you just stop and you write down exactly what you expect is going to happen. Then you just file that note away. 9 to 12 months later, you pull it back out and you compare the actual real-world results with what you originally wrote down. That is literally it. Drucker actually used this exact method himself for over 20 years, and he noted that every single time he did it, the results completely surprised him. It just strips away all of our natural biases and shows us the raw, unfiltered truth of our decision-making.
Moving on to Section 2, the 5 actionable insights.
Okay, so if you run this feedback loop consistently for just 2 or 3 years, it is going to completely map out your professional life. It points you straight toward 5 highly actionable conclusions. First up, you've got to concentrate on your strengths and position yourself where they actually produce results. Second, you have to work consistently to improve those strengths, by acquiring new skills and knowledge. Third, you need to overcome what Drucker calls intellectual arrogance. Fourth, identify and fix the bad habits that are secretly killing your effectiveness. And fifth, you need to fundamentally change your relationship with your weaknesses. Let's actually look a little closer at a couple of these because honestly, they are absolute traps for incredibly smart people. So, let's talk about that third one, intellectual arrogance. This feedback analysis frequently reveals a really disabling ignorance in highly successful people. It happens way too often. Someone who has this vast, deep knowledge in one super specific domain starts to despise or just completely ignore knowledge in other areas. They just fall right into the trap of thinking that being smart is an acceptable substitute for actually doing the work to acquire new knowledge. But spoiler alert, it really isn't. Just because you're absolutely brilliant in engineering, for example, definitely doesn't mean you automatically understand human psychology. The feedback analysis is going to brutally expose exactly where your own arrogance is holding you back.
Now, the analysis also shines a big, bright light on bad habits. And one of the most common ones might actually surprise you. It's the lack of manners. Drucker brilliantly describes good manners as the lubricating oil of an organization. I just love that. You see these bright, highly talented young professionals failing all the time, and it's not because they lack technical skill. No, it's because they simply don't realize that saying please and thank you, or just being genuinely pleasant to work with, is what keeps a whole team moving smoothly. If your feedback analysis shows this weird pattern of your great ideas constantly failing to launch, well, it might just be the friction caused by a lack of organizational lubricating oil.
All right, Section 3, the energy trap. This fifth and final conclusion, it requires a total paradigm shift in how we even think about self-improvement. Just look at the massive misallocation of effort happening in almost every single organization out there right now. Most people, teachers, and big corporate training programs, they waste immense amounts of energy trying to turn an incompetent person into just a mediocre one. The effort it takes to go from bad to just, well, okay, is astronomical, and the yield? Incredibly low. Instead, Drucker argues that you should be spending as little effort as humanly possible trying to fix your areas of low competence. You need to redirect all of that energy into turning your existing competence into stellar, first-rate performance. Taking someone from competent to an absolute star takes effort for sure, but the return on investment is massive. Seriously, stop trying to fix your weaknesses.
Which leads us to Section 4. How do you actually work? So, once you finally figure out what you're good at, you have to pivot. You have to ask yourself an equally important question. How do you actually work? It is crazy how few people actually know how they get things done. Ignoring your personal operating style is just a massive unforced error. So let's do a really quick diagnostic right now. Are you a reader or are you a listener? I really want you to categorize yourself right this second. When you take in new info, do you need to sit down and read a report beforehand to process it, or do you prefer someone to just talk you through it out loud? Amazingly, very few people even realize that these two distinct groups exist, let alone know which one they actually belong to. Listen, if you are a listener trying to operate in a totally reading-heavy environment, you are basically swimming against the current every single day of your life.
And beyond just taking in information, there's a second operational question you absolutely need to ask yourself. How do you learn? We all have this unique, hardwired learning method. Some of us learn by speaking, some by actually doing, others by reading. And to show you just how incredibly specific this can get, let's take a look at one of history's absolute greatest geniuses.
Ludwig van Beethoven left behind an absolute mountain of sketchbooks and notebooks. Yet, he actually admitted himself that he almost never looked at them while he was actively composing. So people would ask him, right, why even keep them? And Beethoven's response was brilliant in its simplicity. He said, "If I don't write it down immediately, I forget it. If I put it in a notebook, I never forget it and I never have to look it up again." Think about that. Beethoven learned purely through the physical act of writing. That was his operational style. You need to discover yours.
Section 5. The decision in the drawer.
Now, theory means absolutely nothing without practice, right? So I am issuing you a direct, immediate challenge that you can start this very week. Here's exactly what I want you to do. First, think of the next big, important decision you have to make it work. Write down clearly and super specifically what you expect the result to be. Second, take that piece of paper and shove it in a drawer or make a digital folder you know you won't check. Heck, put a reminder on your calendar so you don't forget. And third, open it in exactly 1 year and compare your written expectation with reality. I promise you're going to be absolutely stunned by what this one simple feedback loop reveals about your actual strengths and your hidden blind spots.
Which leaves us with this final thought. For most of our lives, we just operate on these vague gut feelings about what we're good at. Honestly, we guess. But the highest performers in the world, they don't guess. They use feedback analysis to uncover the raw, hard data of their own performance. So, my final question to you is, are you ready to stop guessing? It is time to finally build your career on proven, undeniable facts, not just assumptions. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, I highly encourage you to go write down that first expectation right now. Go do it!